All right, awesome. Looks like we're live. All right, good day, everyone. Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live session on the topic The Talent Shortage is Over If You Know Where to Look. I'm Chavi, Content Manager at Recruit CRM, and I'll be moderating today's session. While I'll mostly be behind the scenes, our expert today will be taking all the spotlight. Today, joining us is Sergey Zimpul. Let me give you a quick introduction. Sergey is a seasoned HR leader and also team leader recruiter at Autobahn. With extensive experience in talent acquisition and HR tech, he has led teams at companies like FuturePath, Mr. Specs, and Scout24 Group. Sergey is also the co-founder of Purple Squirrel Society and hosts the HR Messed You Up Kid podcast, focusing on innovation and diversity in recruiting. Welcome, Sergey. Do you want to say a quick hi to the audience and share a bit about what we'll be discussing today?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Sergey. I, in fact, worked for the tech industry for quite a while, about 13 years, and then decided to switch industries last year and joined Autobahn. Autobahn is basically the highway authority here for Germany. So a very different sector, but a company I really enjoy a lot because, in fact, this company was only founded in 2021. So a big company, semi-public sector, but here and there also it sometimes feels a bit like a startup, not a traditional startup for sure, but definitely also with parts of being a startup. And yeah, my tapping talent potential is extremely important for us. That's also the topic for today, because at Autobahn we have a challenge that many other companies in Germany and in other countries have, which is that a lot of their leaders and a lot of their specialists will actually retire in the next 5 to 10 years. And we have to figure out how we can rehire or reskill or upskill other people to fill in.
All right, thank you, Sergey. I think with that we can get started with the session. So I'll pose my first question to you. How do you define untapped talent pools, and what are some examples of places recruiters should start looking beyond traditional channels?
Yeah, I think one thing that I already just mentioned, retirees, actually something that's quite important for an aging society as Germany, even more important. Because at least here in Germany, you can still work when you start your retirement. And some people, especially maybe if they want to work part-time, are still able to work and still motivated to work. So I think that's a very interesting and very important group, especially for very senior positions, and also where you need a lot of specific and very detailed knowledge about niche technologies as well. So that's very important. And then, of course, speaking from my experience in the tech industry, of course, international hiring is extremely important, right? That's something that's a bit of a challenge for us now at Autobahn for two main reasons. First reason is we are yet a very German company in a very German industry. So we need people who are able to speak fluent German, not only for internal meetings, but also a lot of our external stakeholders don't really speak English. So that's a big challenge. So that was a bit easier in the tech industry. But something else that we now try to do is not only to upskill people, of course. We have a big part of the company is actually doing the job on the highways. They are basically like building up the construction sites, making sure that the pavement on the highway is good, etc., stuff like that. And these people are often for a very long time with Autobahn, and also have a lot of internal knowledge about Autobahn. So if you manage to upskill these people, also for office jobs, for white-collar jobs, that's a very important approach for us. In addition to that, we also review some of our key positions. We, of course, have a lot of civil engineers, as you can imagine. But what we try to figure out now, which parts of the job where we might also be able to hire people with a different profile, maybe with people who don't have a university degree, not a master's degree, but maybe some kind of other degree, maybe a bachelor's degree or something like that, or vocal education. And these people actually also can take over some of the tasks and responsibilities of our civil engineers, so that they can focus on the more senior jobs. So there's not one answer, that not no silver bullet to it, but you really have to combine different approaches, and you also have to figure out what works for your industry and for your kind of company.
Right, thanks, Sergey. My next question is, in your experience, what are the most effective ways to identify and engage hidden talent that some others, may overlook?
I think for that, data is extremely important. So some call it talent intelligence. Well, speaking for Autobahn, we are not yet at a point where I could tell you we do talent intelligence, but we still can use data. We, of course, do a lot of active sourcing where we approach people proactively on LinkedIn. And even with a normal LinkedIn talent account, but maybe even with the Talent Insights account, you can really dig deep into the talent data, and you can figure out where's the talent actually coming from, which universities, which degrees, which cities, and where maybe also people are especially looking for a job, and you might need to relocate them. So data is extremely important, both external data, but also your internal data, because we also started using an internal dashboard of our ITS that we've built to also figure out how fast we are in our processes. That, of course, does not help you to untap any hidden potential, but you also have to make sure that, like, everyone that you can find out there with your external data, that you manage to hire as many people as possible in these very small talent pools, and that you really figure out if and where you lose these people in your recruiting process. And that really has to go hand in hand.
All right, thanks, Sergey. So my next question is going to be in line with what you mentioned earlier, upskilling and reskilling. So these two things are becoming very essential in today's labor market. How can recruitment leaders start integrating these into their hiring strategies effectively?
I already mentioned this example of our blue-collar worker here at Autobahn. I think one thing that's key for recruiters is really to think outside the box, and to really also be open to discuss these things with other people in the company and also outside the company. For instance, I have regular meetings with my colleagues from the HR development teams, where we also review our data, for instance, on like how many people will start their retirement, where we might have people with a similar skill set that we could maybe hire internally, or that we could upskill or train internally. And again, I think too many people in recruiting only focus on recruiting and on external candidates. But what we want to do at Autobahn, and we are just at the very beginning of that, to be fair, is to also really have like an internal talent pipeline where we know where this talent is coming from internally, and what skills they need or what trainings they need to get on the positions where we have a gap. So our goal is to really have like a great understanding which people, for instance, could fill future civil engineer roles that we could upskill internally, in which areas and in which department they are at the moment, and what kind of trainings they need. That might be technical trainings, but it might also be trainings on topics such as communication or leadership skills.
All right, I love that. Sergey, what are some common misconceptions about upskilling and reskilling that could be limiting their effectiveness in addressing talent shortages?
Maybe that is easy. I think it's a very complex topic, and again, I think that what you really have to have in mind, there is no silver bullet. I think too many companies just buy a best practice solution from like some kind of strategy consulting firm and expect it to work. I think that doesn't work. I think you really have to sit down. You have to look at all the data that you have from your company to figure out what works, again, for your industry and for your specific company. I think that's something that's extremely important, and something that I also mentioned before. I think that we really need to understand that this is not only about technical skills. Of course, technical skills are extremely important. If you have a civil engineer and they don't know how to build bridges, for instance, at Autobahn, we have a huge problem, of course. But apart from that, they also need many other skills. They need language skills, they need communication skills, they need leadership skills. And also, of course, if we look forward, all these upcoming topics are also becoming more and more important. Also, for instance, for civil engineering, not only AI, but also a lot of digitalization topics. For instance, if you do planning for a construction site nowadays, you always have something called a digital clone. So basically, you have a whole project, also, of course, digitally. And a civil engineer nowadays not only has to understand how to build a bridge, but they also need to figure out all the IT and the technical stuff. So that's something that you should really, or that you must really not forget if you, or when you upskill your people.
All right, thanks, Sergey. How can companies effectively balance the need for immediate talent with the long-term benefits of investing in skill development?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Again, not too easy to answer. I think we all know the problem that management approaches you and tells you, look, we need people yesterday, right? And of course, you need to find a short way or a short-term solution for that, which also often means hiring with everything that you got. I already mentioned before that we created an internal team here in active sourcing. I know many other companies, many other industries do that for a long time, but for this industry, that's still something new. So you really have to do active sourcing, of course. You need, of course, specialized headhunters for these very hard to hire roles. And this is expensive, of course, but you really need to give everything that you have to fill these external roles, often with external candidates, because if you hire internal candidates, of course, you cannibalize other departments or other teams. And then for the long-term solution, you really have to sit down with your colleagues, as I already mentioned, and really like dive deep into the data, dive deep into your company. You need to understand it in a very detailed way, and you have to understand which of your colleagues or which of your company employees actually might have a lot of those skills that you're not aware of. Again, if you work in a blue-collar job at the Autobahn, you basically worked on the highway for your whole life. So you have like a lot of internal and untapped potential and knowledge, but you might not have the degree. And if you know Germany, degrees and regulations are very important here. So that's something that you have, of course, to manage proactively, but still you already have a starting point and you have someone with maybe already the right knowledge and maybe also the right mindset and a good understanding of the company. And then you just need to figure out what you need to do to get this person where you need them.
All right, thanks, Sergey. My next question for you would be, what role do you see recruiters play in advocating for upskilling and reskilling within organizations? How can recruiters influence decision making how can they influence decision makers to invest in these areas?
I think the maybe the most important thing here is that they actually do that, that they speak up, and that they approach senior management about these topics. Because what I've seen in many companies, at least from my perspective, is that recruiters are way too passive and maybe even a bit too shy to approach senior management about these topics. But I think that's also a huge chance and a huge potential for us, where we can really also show senior management what we can do or what we already see. Because if you talk to recruiters and companies, they often have already figured out where we already struggle with finding candidates and where it's getting harder every year, and where we also have to refill more and more roles because people are leaving, for instance, because of retirement. So again, often the recruitment team will actually know what they have to focus on. You just need them to speak up. And of course, always if you talk to senior management, then you have to have the data available, right? You can not only share your opinion with them, you really need to focus, and you need to be able to come across as prepared and professional. Again, I think every company and every recruitment team has at least some data. You can look at something basic as time to hire. I bet that some of your tech or engineering roles have a way longer time to hire than other roles in your company, and you can already show this to the management. Also, again, all external data that you have, there's a lot of benchmark data available for free on the internet. You can just like Google it, you can use AI, you can use other sources. There's a lot of data there that like every one of us can use. Just to give you an example, if you do some benchmarking, if you do some research in Germany, you know that for like every civil engineer on the job market, every civil engineer gets about like 6 job offers if they look for a job. That's like very like basic data, easy data. But if you sit down with your senior management and you mention that, then it's totally clear for them, okay, this is something that we need to focus on. This is not a soft topic, or this is not a topic that we might need to think about in a couple of years, but that's something that we have to focus on now.
All right. Another question that I had was, with labor shortages affecting industries globally, how can companies overcome geographic or sector specific skill gaps and maintain growth at the same time?
Again, yeah, depending, of course, on the industry. That's something that I really realized when I was working for the tech industry. Just to give you an example, tech companies used to hire a lot of people from Eastern Europe and maybe also from Spain and Portugal. The thing is, many companies actually had the same idea, which meant that at least senior talent, at least before the so-called tech winter, got very expensive. And basically all senior talent or most senior talent was already approached or hired. So something that you need to figure out is how you can figure out where to go next if you want to hire internationally. Sorry. So you also have to understand global changes. This can also be the geopolitical changes as we have now with everything that's happening in the US and with everything that's happening in other countries. Of course, we all know that salaries in the US are way higher than in Germany or in the EU, but still that's something that you should really look into if you can hire internationally at the moment. And you also need to understand which other countries at the moment have a brain drain where people are leaving for several reasons. And you need to try to figure out this before other companies do that. That's not easy. That's almost a full-time job. But if you're a leader in recruitment, especially in tech recruitment, you need to invest some time each week to figure that out.
All right, thanks, Sergey. I think I have one last question for you before we move on to a Q&A round where the audience can, share some questions that they might have and we can pick those up. So looking ahead, how do you see the role of recruiters evolving as the labor market continues to change, and what skills will they need to stay ahead of the curve?
Yeah, very interesting question. And to be honest, I don't know, because it could go different ways. Because we have at the one hand, we have labor shortage for several reasons, for like demographic reasons, for other reasons, for like global development. But of course, we also have the big question mark, how much AI will be able to do, right? For me personally, it feels a bit like we might approach like the bursting of the bubble in AI soon, because a lot of companies actually try to not hire people for certain roles and try to replace it with AI. And I think just in very few use cases, it really works. And in many other use cases, it does not work. That might change again in a couple of years. Maybe in a couple of years, we won't need any recruiters anymore anyway. Who knows? I think for now, not really. But what I want to say with that, it's really, really important that we know what's going on in AI and also in other technologies. Again, I've already talked about several full-time jobs that you basically have as a recruiter. But to add one more, you need to read the news, and you need to read the tech news, what's going on, what kind of technologies are coming up. You can also do fun stuff with that, not only play around with ChatGPT. To give you an example, I installed a local learning model on my computer here at home. Nothing fancy, a very small one, but just to be able to figure a few things out and understand them better, and to try to figure out what might also happen or change with AI in the future. So again, not an easy answer, but I think the most important thing for recruiters is to stay curious, to really also like always look out what's coming up there. If it's really coming up, or if it's just another hype, it doesn't matter for now. You need to understand what people talk about, and you need to try to network as much as possible. Because then if you talk to other people, they might also share some news with from other countries, from other industries with you that otherwise you might not have been aware of. And I know that's hard. I myself has become a dad a couple of months ago, so networking definitely becomes harder as that. But still, if you can figure out, or if you can find at least some time, a couple of times a year, to go to network events, or maybe even online networking events, that helps a lot. But the most important thing is to stay curious.
All right, awesome. So again, congratulations on being a dad. I think I saw your post
Thank you.
back in May. Yeah. All right. So I think yeah, that wraps up our main part of our session. Thank you for answering those questions so well, Sergey. And now we'll transition into the Q&A round. So in case anybody in the audience has any questions, something that sparked their curiosity throughout the discussion, now is the time to ask those questions. I think we've received one question. They're asking, what's your advice for smaller companies with limited resources trying to compete for talent against larger organizations?
I think what you need to try to figure out what makes a company special. As a small company, you might have fewer regulations than bigger companies like us, for instance, and that also might allow you to move faster. So that's a big advantage you have, and I advise you to play into that. And also you need to figure out for what kind of talent your company is interesting. And if you try to approach, I don't know, people working at big tech with much bigger salaries, you might need to invest a lot of time, and in the end you might not be able to hire any of these people. But there might be some people in other industries that are actually a bit sick of working for a larger company, for a bigger company, and they might want to look for a change, and maybe a faster, fancier, smaller company where they can have a bigger impact. And that's something that you have to figure out. You can use again data for that. For instance, talent insights. You can also look at what kind of companies people are moving to from big companies, and then you can figure out, are these people, when they are leaving their old company, moving to other big companies or maybe to smaller companies. And if you can figure out, okay, they are moving to smaller companies, then you should really focus on this talent.
All right, thank you, Sergey. I think that's the major question that we had in the audience, but I actually have another question that we received some time back. From some of our followers a while back. Now we've talked about this topic on our blog and other channels as well, often. So we had a question by somebody asking, what are some practical steps recruiters can take to ensure they are continuously building a talent pipeline that can adapt to future industry shifts?
Yeah, that's extremely important, but also not easy, because most recruiters I know, and that's also true for me and for my team, are just so busy with like filling current roles that you don't really have enough time to really build a talent pipeline. I mean, best case is that you have some kind of CRM, could be Recruit CRM or any like other any other CRM software where you can also like automate this stuff, right? Where you can, if you talk to a candidate and this candidate might not be the right one for this role, but might be a great fit for your company in a year or for a different role, um, build up a talent pool. Again, not a new topic, but extremely important one. You should definitely do that. But if you do it, focus on this topic and do it right. If you try to do it on the side, you will have messy data. You will have maybe have problems with data protection, which is of course super important for that topic. And you might lose all these candidates. So that's extremely important. One thing that I've figured out that is a bit of an in-between, and that's a bit easier, is to identify a couple of very senior people in an industry that might actually not be interested in joining your company, but that have a very good network and that for some reason or other likes you or your company. And maybe meet them for lunch or meet them for a nice informal video call, get to know them on a personal basis, because then that's someone that you can reach out to if you want to fill another role. Which is not the same as a full talent pipeline, of course, but maybe a bit more like a pragmatic approach. I have these people in my network for especially niche positions and niche teams where I know they have an extremely good network. And if I reach out to them, they give me a couple of recommendations with some candidates that I can reach out to, that so that I can have this talent pipeline as soon as possible.
All right, thank you so much, Sergey. I think those are all the questions we have today. And yeah, thank you so much for the amazing session. Do you have any closing remarks for the audience before we wrap up?
No, I maybe just to underline a few things that I said earlier. I think like it's crazy how much the world is changing. If you look back just a couple of years, it feels at least for me that we lived in a completely different world, like pre-COVID, pre all those crazy wars that are now going on in this world, and things will continue to change in the future. No one knows how the world will actually look like in 5 years or so, and probably none of us will actually be able to figure that out. But again, like that's like my closing remark: stay curious. Try to figure out what's going on out there, speak to other people, and then at least you can be like one of the people who might be able to figure it out before the majority of other people. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Sergey. Well, yeah, that wraps up our session for the day. Don't forget to connect with Sergey on LinkedIn and check out his company. I've dropped the links in the chat. If you'd like to learn more about Recruit CRM, you can visit our website as well. And if you're interested in exploring our ATS and CRM, you can easily book a free demo with us today, and we'll walk you through everything. We also have a no commitment, unlimited free trial, so you can experience the product firsthand there as well. And do connect with us on social media to stay updated on upcoming live events and also more collaborations with Sergey and other exciting news. So, all of these links are in the chat right now for everyone to interact with. And yeah, thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to see you again at our next event.